Picks it up, his long outlet, and he's got Claude Giroux with a burst of speed. Giroux cutting it in the shot. He scores! Claude Giroux's first goal in the National Hockey League has brought the Flyers within one. It is 3-2.
You can't imagine what that feels like unless you've been through it. Unbelievable play, though, by Darryl Powell right in front of Coetzee to thread the needle to Giroux.
Hey everybody, it's Isaiah. Welcome to the O&B Puckcast. Before we get started, just wanted to remind you that we are brought to you by Jim South Street, down on 400 South Street, 40 years of the best cheesesteaks, hoagies, and fries you'd ever want in the grandest Philadelphia tradition. So check them out at 400 South Street in Philadelphia, PA. And now to our show. And we are back. It is the O&B Puckcast, episode number 262. As the Philadelphia Flyers are in that kind of silly season, we're hearing a lot of rumors about some things. We got some news for you, just breaking today. We got some round of latest rumors. We're brought to you by FlyersNittyGritty.com, Summit Adjusters, Jim South Street. And of course, now we are featured on HockeyHotStove.com, the latest, most exciting hockey forum. You can find us linked there. Just hit the Flyers logo or scroll down on the page, the homepage at HockeyHotStove.com. So without any further delay, let's speak with our panel before we get to our guest. Chef B, you're number one on the list for your opening thoughts. What's up?
Yes. So let's just say this. If you had any doubts if Briere can make good deals, well, I think they should cross that one off your list. I know people were complaining about him, but boy, he really cemented a couple of good ones, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. Can't wait.
Yeah, absolutely. So the great Dan Silver weighing in with us tonight. Glad to have you, Dan.
Yeah, glad to be here. I agree with Chef. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit, but I think Briere is proving to be a little bit more of a savvy negotiator than his predecessor. We got Stanley Cup hockey playoff tonight. When people listen to the show, the game one will be over, but we're recording right before the game. So excited to see what should be a epic rematch between two really good teams.
Yeah, definitely. So joining us tonight from Flyers broadcast, pre and post game host, and you hear him on Flyers Daily Podcast all the time. Jason Myrtetus back with us. Jason, thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me. It's been, first of all, it's been far too long since they've played a game of hockey with the season still going on.
Yes.
The Cup taking this kind of a break is absurd. And it has me already dreading the offseason when there's not going to be any hockey for a couple of months. But I'm looking forward to the Cup final. I'm looking forward to more to come in this offseason. And I like the way Briere's approaching things, kind of checking boxes off of the things he knows he has to get done to have them out of the way when things may get complicated and some wheeling and dealing starts happening, as they're sitting in Buffalo right now, face-to-face with all their compatriots around the league for the only time this offseason because the draft is decentralized. So I think a lot of groundwork's being done right now. Some deals got done already for Danny that were important, so we're off to a good start, I think.
Yeah, I think so. So let's hit that right now, get that out of the way. The Flyers signed Cates and Foerster, 2 years, $3.75 million. It will still be an RFA, I believe, at the end of that deal. So
ARB eligible, but yeah.
Yeah, ARB eligible, but still some leeway there, and basically Tyson betting on himself. And then Noah Cates signs a 4-year contract extension and an AAV of $4 million. Jason, let's dig in and get your reaction there.
I would have preferred, honestly, that they went a little longer with Tyson, but I never have a problem with a guy betting on himself because I think you get the best from a guy in that situation. And he surprised me a little bit as a player because I didn't think he'd be a player that could play all zones the way he does, be as heavy on his stick in board battles and those kind of things. So maybe look, I'm not a scout. I don't go deep into that stuff, but he surprised me in that regard, and he's a really good player. And I think he's really highly regarded around the league. And coming off the World Hockey Championship that he had, playing with top end talent was another thing to go, we better get this guy done, or somebody's going to, everybody's talking about Flyers offer sheeting somebody could offer sheet Tice real quick and put us in a bind. So I like that deal. And then the Cates one I really like, because it's, hey, we're not going to get married for life, but we're going to commit to each other for 4 years. And if we have some rocky roads in there and we got to move that timeline and move you in 2 years, then we can. So it's a real good deal kind of all the way around. And I think a guy like Cates is a guy that, we said this all the time about Ristolainen, that can pay dividends in a 7-game series. I think Cates is one of those guys too, not because he's mean, but just because he's willing to play really detailed inch-by-inch hockey. Now the problem is you got to get to the playoffs for that to pay off. Everybody says, Ristolainen would be great in a 7-game series. Well, he's never been in one. So we got to walk before we run. But I like both the deals. I think Danny got 2 nice pieces of business done and checked and out of the way.
You got it, Chef.
Now, on our last show, you weren't there, but I brought up the possibility of other people kind of going after Tyson Foerster, and that was, a couple weeks ago. And then I was listening to you on Flyers Daily. You and Bill were talking about it, that when did that become a real possibility? When did other people, because I know we talked about it, and I brought it up, and, it was kind of like, well, does everybody else see what the Flyers see? Was that something that they were really concerned about, you think?
Well, I think it heightened with his performance at the Worlds because of the way he performed with top players, guys like Nathan McKinnon. And you see that, the one thing you always kind of worried about him is his pace of play going to be high enough? Because he came in and the knock was his skating. And you always wonder that about a larger body guy. Is the pace of play going to be able to be there to play with guys who play with a lot of pace? And, as you guys know, you look at guys like McDavid and McKinnon, nobody plays at a pace that they play at. And if you can play at that pace, not only keep up, not the straight line skating, it's not about that, it's about playing fast, which is different, and being able to mentally think the game on their level, then that's a really good sign. So I think that accentuates. I think people were probably looking at him already as they look around the league for possible RFA offer sheets. So I think he was a guy that was on people's radar, but that got accentuated with the performance at Worlds. So you just don't want to put yourself in a position where you want to keep him, but now you got to do something that's going to kind of send your cap into a little bit of haywire. Because as a GM, you have to have that fiscal path really figured out with when guys are going to be RFAs, when guys are coming into the league on ELCs, coming off ELCs, into restricted status, into unrestricted. You have to have this flow chart that's constantly updating going forward. So you don't want somebody coming in and disrupting that. So they obviously think highly of him. And, it's good to get that done and not have to worry about it. And then you just worry about whether you're going to do an offer sheet or not, which is a little dangerous in a year when Gavin McKenna may be available and you still have a lot of question marks in the offseason. But we'll see how Danny goes this offseason. I think everything's on the table, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Dan?
Yeah, as I said in my preamble, I really think that Danny Briere is already he's shown us he's more savvy than his predecessor, Chuck Fletcher, with some of the trades he's made in terms of moving draft picks around and 3-team deals. And now I think he's starting to show that he's a little more savvy with the contracts. I also should say that I think that he's also been a lot better about keeping information from leaking out from that perspective. And now we see with some of the contracts, Tyson Foerster, to me, I think he's one of he has a chance to be one of the better all-around hockey players on the team. I think he's just a very solid player. I don't know if he'll put up like the same type of point output as an Owen Tippett, but I think he's a better hockey player than Owen Tippett, if that's kind of a way to put it. One of the things I like about this deal is that he's, as Jason mentioned, might have been nice to sign him to a long-term deal. Got him for 2 years. He's going to be an RFA after that. You look down the middle, and right now, this team doesn't have a lot of very good offensive centers. Now, will they in the next 2 years? I don't know. But one of the things I think is that I still don't think that Foerster's offensive output is going to skyrocket in the next 2 years, partly because it's going to be a regular growth curve, and partly because, again, they don't have the centers to bring that out of him yet, I don't think. So to me, that's one of the nice things about the shorter term is that I don't know if 2 years from now, if, they're going to have to sign him to a massive dollar contract. We'll see what happens. Hopefully he does go out and proves that and becomes a power play monster, so on and so forth. And then the Cates deal, I really like the Cates deal. I think it's fair value. To me, he's the kind of guy that the way he plays, and he's kind of so gritty and he's always around the play and he's good defensively. That's the kind of guy to me that can wear down a little bit over time. So I didn't really want to sign him necessarily into like his, through his early 30s, basically. I think he's a very good hockey player, sort of like Foerster, not the offensive upside. But I think both the terms made sense, the dollars made sense, and now we're in a situation where the Flyers basically have 2 RFAs left to sign, Cam York and Jake Peltier, and they've got $18 million worth of cap space, which, those 2 guys are not going to take up a very large chunk of that.
Even a third of that.
Yeah, right. Exactly. If that, I don't know if they're what they're gonna do this offseason, but it leaves them with some room to do something this offseason if they want. And by the way, that $18 million includes Ryan Ellis's $6 million. So if you assume he could go on long-term IR, that's $24 million basically that, when the season starts will be available. And then we've got all the money coming off next summer. So I really think that I think they were good deals. The Foerster deal looked like it was a little under market value. So that was great. Cates was right around what it was kind of predicted at from some of the market modelers. So I'm really happy with what Danny's done with those 2 contracts. And look, we've talked about how a lot of these moves they've made, bringing in Tocchet, taking Lachenko over Zev Buyam, a lot of these moves have been like, we need to trust in Danny and Jonesy, right? And I think it's easier for me, at least, to do that when I see some of the other positive things that I think that Danny is very good at. So that's kind of like where I'm at. Still got this trust level in him, and I'm happy with what he's done so far this offseason.
I think people forget about his opening salvo too, because it was this time 2 years ago when he made the Provorov trade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right before the Cup final, and everyone's like, "Whoa, you're not supposed to make trades before the Cup final. You can't."
A 3-team deal.
Yeah,
a 3-teamer.
That was a complicated trade, right? It was like, whoa. You don't get that one unless you went back to school and went to Wharton, to be able to put those pieces, which is exactly what he did.
And it wasn't leaked either. Nobody knew. There was no inkling of it.
Yeah, they operate very clandestine. They're like psyops going on over there. Did we hear anything about the Cutter Gauthier situation until we were sitting in the press box in the first period of that Penguin game? We had no idea that there was a rub to the degree that there obviously was. The one thing about Cates is he is 26. He'll be 27 in February. I think February 5th, if I recall. And he's only played 265 NHL games at his age because he went the college route and played all 4 years.
Yeah.
And they just don't play much in college. Maybe there's a little less wear on his body for a 26-year-old. But you're right, Danny. Like, he plays the game at one effort level, and it's maximum effort level, right? Like everything. Like, he's such a good forechecker. Like, I love him as a forechecker. But ideally, you want that guy to be a third-line center. Right. Problem is you got a couple other guys that ideally you want to be a third line center. A little redundant in that department. Yeah. I am wondering about York though, what the play is here for both the player side, which I think he's going to be saying, I want a small, short prove it deal. And from a team side, and if he were to be used in a trade, is his value what it was prior after last season, as opposed to what it is now? How depressed is it around the league? So there's still some big question marks. Peltier, I didn't see much to this season in him to make me go, I got to sign him. But, they'll sign him, but it's not going to be any high ticket.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. Something that did come across today that appears to be the case, broken by David Pagnotta, and apparently Anthony Sanfilippo kind of sort of confirmed it on X. Yogi Svejkovsky is looking to be an assistant coach who will be joining the Flyers on Rick Tocchet's staff. And he worked with Tock in Vancouver, and his responsibility initially, I believe, was like a skills coach. And then he moved into a regular assistant role, appears to be someone who might be the power play coach that is as much as I can tell you. Obviously, there hasn't been an official announcement, but the sourcing on that is pretty good. You know anything about him, Jason?
No, I mean, I know like a lot of head coaches, they have guys that they've had on their staff and they'll bring them with them. Like Peter Laviolette was famous for that,
Right?
You know, having guys that he would bring to every stop along the way. AV was that way as well. And you look at this situation. First of all, he's got to be the first Yogi in Flyers history.
Yeah,
That's
it's actually
sure.
Jaroslav. So
yeah, but you know, he comes in, and I think they're just probably waiting to announce him along with the entire staff. I don't think you just you announce your coaching assistants and drips and drabs. Maybe there's somebody else on one of these two teams that are in the final, or somebody who's in the conference final that they're trying to put on the staff. I don't know. But you announce that maybe all at one time as opposed to, you know, in pieces. So that's probably what they're waiting on. And as you mentioned, yeah, good source to reporting here. So I have no reason to doubt it. I don't know much about them, you know, other than, you know, their power play was really decent at times, but like everything this past year with Vancouver, everything kind of slid a little bit because of all the drama off the ice. So, and which, by the way, was some pretty credible source reporting from Elliot Friedman on Elias Pettersson, that the person who wanted to get that extension done was one man and one man only pretty much. And that's Jim Rutherford to do an extension of that length because there's a lot of question marks about the player. But yeah, we'll see how they fill out this staff. But for the fact that if he's going to be the power play coach, geez, just fix it. Don't tell me how you're going to do it. Just do it. I'm so tired of talking about a garbage power play that visually looked worse and worse by the day. And it wasn't just statistically bad. It's sometimes you just watching it. What is going on here? And I don't want to hear that they don't have top end talent. There's teams that have mediocre power plays or average power plays in the league that got less talent than they do. So you got to figure it out. And I hope he can figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely, Dan.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a little bit skeptical of trying to give anyone except for Quinn Hughes that much credit for the Vancouver power play. I mean, when you've got a creator at the point like that, I feel like your power play is going to be pretty good. And then you throw in Elias Pettersson, who, you know, with the man advantage is a good player, and then Brock Besser, who's a really good trigger man, and you know, JT Miller. I feel like that team had a lot of talent for a power play. So I hope that if this new assistant is the power play guy, hopefully he can bring something to the table. But I'm a little skeptical of a lot of that Vancouver success was driven by the personnel and not as much the coaches. But we have no way of knowing that for sure in terms of how good the coaches were.
Yeah, and give me a Quinn Hughes as the QB all day and every day,
yeah,
right?
Every day, right?
That's the Flyers problem. Like, I don't know who the power play runs through. I go, it should run through Mishkov, but you know, is he the guy to facilitate the beginning of everything, or the guy that kind of finishes the play? Who's that guy? Is it a Giroux type on the half wall, or is it a point man? We haven't found either. You got to have like an alpha athlete that goes in there and says, all right, we obtain the zone, we set up, we get the puck to me. It comes to me every time. Like, you need to get the player to determine that. Like, that's what Giroux did. Giroux was like, we get in the zone. I don't give two craps how we get in the zone. When we get in the zone, you get it to me on the left half wall. I'm a right shot. I can see everything in front, and we'll go from there. You got to have an alpha take ownership of it. That's what they need to find that guy.
Could Marco Rossi be that guy? I had to say it.
Oh, you're jumping right in.
Yeah,
Marco Rossi, 5'9", 182, drafted in 20, missed a whole year of development with COVID. One of the few players who just got knocked out by the disease. Nothing to do with the jab or any of that nonsense. He went from 40 points to 60 points. He's playing with some really good players in Minnesota, but still, it's kind of impressive.
Why do they want to get rid of him, though? Why is he out there? Like,
I keep hearing the same thing, Jason, that Bill Guerin has this vision of what he wants his club to be, and a 5'9"
team. Yeah,
right. He wants a big team, and a 5'9" center is not it. And the other thing is, he wants a 7-year, 7x7 contract.
So do I.
Everybody does. The thing is, he's 23. He's going to be 24 in September, and I'm like, if you could just make that like 5 years, I'd be willing to really take a look at that. Because if he's supplanted by future draft picks or anything like that. It's a talented guy. And certainly we have nothing at center. We don't really have any top 6 centers.
Here's the thing, though. And this is Bill and I talked about this because I was coming up with some talking points for our Monday episode. Mm-hmm. And in today's league, and I have a theory. I'd love to get you guys' thoughts on my theory. I always have theories. Why coaches don't last 2 years in the NHL. I got theories on that because of the way they grew up playing hockey, and every 2 years you got a new coach. But my theory is in today's NHL, a 32-team salary capped league, that you almost have to be perfect to be a cup contender. Now, we look at Edmonton, and they have 2 insane talents, and McDavid and Draisaitl that lead the way, but they didn't become a cup contender. They built an entire team and bought in defensively, which they have the last 2 years. I think they're better this year than they were last. But look at the teams that continually. We're seeing more back-to-back matchups, more teams go back to cups 2, now 3 years in a row. Why is that? Because that team has the least amount of mistakes in building its roster, and a roster that's built using multiple methods. Trades, free agents, waiver wire with Carter Verhaeghe, for Christ's sake. And you look at how they're built, and because they're close to perfect, they keep going back to the final. You can't make mistakes. So if you need that 1C and you want Rossi to be that, is he just the best guy that's available right now, or is he the best guy long-term for that? Because look at Florida. Like, they had Barkov, they had Ekblad, they had all these players, a lot of these players for years, and they didn't do squad douche until they got it all together. So do you get Rossi to plug? He's kind of a 2C to me more than
right. Exactly. Yeah, he is. Yeah. But you don't even have that now.
You do, but what's your 1C? Like, to me, you got to start at that top of the mountain first.
Well, you got to draft him. That's 2-3 years. Maybe. That's the problem.
I mean, well. The 1C in Vegas wasn't drafted by Vegas.
He had a neck injury that, like, a lot of clubs wouldn't even touch.
It happens.
Well, Kachuk wasn't drafted by Florida. You know what I mean? Like, these players, this notion that top talent doesn't move in this league doesn't wash. Mikko Rantanen was traded not once but twice this year.
I understand that, but I guess my point is this: you got to crawl before you walk. The Flyers need to upgrade.
Totally.
At certain positions to help grow their wingers and things like that. And I think they're stagnating in that way. And their power play and everything. And once you get that forward momentum, because he's young, if he was 25 or 27, I wouldn't be interested. But because he's just turning 24, in the middle of that contract, if somebody supplants him or he's kind of like, we can move on from him, he still has value if he continues to be a 50 to 70 point player in that range. As opposed to you're stuck with him. And that's like Kevin Hayes, he was just the best guy available. And he was already, 28 or something? Marco Rossi's the younger. So this is why I hear what you're saying. I think it's valid, but I think it's less valid if the player is really young. And you need to take a step up in certain areas. Start checking some boxes. And I think at center,
is he a guy you're willing to take that swing on, though, a 7x7?
Not 7. No, it had 5 years max.
But a player at that age in this league, they want term. They want that. You know what I mean? That won't get it done then probably for you.
That's it. That's my qualifier. Chef, you got something?
If we look at the 32 teams in the league, how many of them have number 1 centers? How many number 1 centers are really in the league?
8,
12, 13 at the most?
3/4 of the league, baby.
No, I don't think it's
I'd
that.
say bona fide 1Cs, there's probably 8 or 10, I think.
Okay. I was stretching it.
To that would be a 1C no matter where they went, basically. I mean, it's McKinnon, McDavid, Eichel. You got those guys.
So my point being, if it comes up in the possibility, do you have all these picks, you have all this everything out there, do you sell the farm? Honestly, to get that 1C that is only 1/3 of the league actually has. Or a quarter of the league.
Well, you can be a team that doesn't have like the superstar center and still be good. Like you look at Tampa, like who led the way there with their scoring, or the Rangers get a lot of their scoring off the wing, but you have a center that can facilitate. Like Vinny Trocheck was great there, but he's not a 1C. He's not top of the league guy. But when you got great wingers, Kreider puts up 60, or and you got a facilitator like Panarin. which I think Mishkov has a lot of Panarin in him, but better goal scoring touch than Panarin. What, am I crazy?
Yeah,
like that? I'm saying like he's better than Panarin right now, or he's going to be.
Tampa had Hedman and Vasilevsky, right? Who the Flyers don't have. You know,
I don't even have Vasilevsky's old rotten out pads.
That would be a great get for the Flyers. But you know, Rossi, I really like what Jason was talking about, how you need to be kind of perfect in the way that you construct the cap. And the Flyers already have problems. They're giving Sean Couturier $8 million a year for the next 5 seasons. He's a center, by the way. You know, that's a bit of a problem. I think with Rossi, you just drafted a undersized center last year, in Jet Luchenko, to be your 2C ultimately, right? 3 years from now, I don't know. And
maybe next year.
Yeah, right. Well, exactly. So do you want to add another smallish center? I mean, I do. I didn't watch the Wild a lot in the playoffs, but from people that I respect talking about the Wild, who watch the Wild all the time, none of them have been all that impressed with Rossi or convinced that he can become like a legitimate 2C on a playoff team. The Wild had him as their 4th line center in the playoffs. Now, maybe they have issues with his size, but it just seems like a chance that I don't know if we need to take. I mean, I feel like you almost kind of want to wait and see what happens in the draft. I mean, okay, if Porter Martone falls to number 6 and you end up drafting him, okay, maybe you want to try and trade for a center, right? But if Caleb Denoyer lasts the number 6 and you take him, and now you've got him and Luchenko, and presumably you're hopefully going to be going after another center, because probably Denoyer, Luchenko, Rossi, none of them might not be that, you know, top third of the league 1C, right? And so you want to still try and be able to trade for that guy or something. And now I don't know. That's just kind of where I am on Rossi. I don't think I'd do it right now. Maybe 5 years, Isaiah. But this team wants to be able to compete for a cup 3 to 4 years from now, I feel like. And I think they want to make some kind of huge splash next offseason. And I'm just not sure if you're going to trade for Rossi and then draft a center and have Luchenko, and you've got Cates signed for 4 years and you've got Couturier signed for 5 years. Like, how does that all work?
And you're going to go after McDavid next offseason.
And you're going to go after McDavid.
Well, okay,
how does having all those 5 guys make you perfect with the salary cap?
When does having too many centers become a problem in this league? Very rarely.
Because you can move them to the wing.
Yeah.
You can move them to the wing, or you can move them out of town.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, the whole league is looking for centers right now. That's part of my point. The other thing is, I've watched a little bit of Rossi. One thing that people say about him that's a positive: he's always around the net. He is not a perimeter player. If I saw him and I said, "Nah, he shies away from the net," no, he doesn't. So he is more net present. He plays in the middle of the ice.
He plays in the middle of the ice.
Yeah, he's got some positive qualities. And again, because he's young and the contract would be no more than 5 years, I think they could use a shot in the arm. And the other thing is that Brock Nelson just resigned with Colorado. So that kind of bridge player, that's one you could, check off. He will not be available. And it'll be interesting to see what they come up with. I think they need something this summer to put in at that position, some player that'll help move them along, or else I don't know what kind of season it's going to be. I think the players,
No, I'll say this: if you end up drafting a winger like a Martone, or you draft Anton Frondell and you think he can be a winger, a big winger, or Martone, a big winger, I would trade Owen Tippett in an instant for Marco Rossi. Like, that's something I would do. Owen Tippett is signed through 2032 at $6.2 million. I would trade him in that contract right now for Marco Rossi at the same dollar value.
Like, Garen might like that too. I mean,
done.
Obviously,
Garen loves
big body.
Big bodies.
Yeah. Like, he can skate like the wind. I mean, he's one of the
I would do
that
that right now. But I don't, as the roster is currently constructed, I wouldn't want to add him in his salary. But you trade Tippett for him straight up, I'm in.
Yeah, you get Frundell, I'm having a party.
See, but the thing is with Frundell and Martone, like we overvalue. Like we don't know what they're going to be or when they're going to be it. You know what I mean? Sometimes bigger players, especially bigger players, take longer because the way that their body is matured physically, they dominate the game now because they're bigger and stronger than everybody. But then they get to the NHL and they realize I'm not bigger and stronger than everybody here. You know, so it takes a longer for them to get the savvy, the nuance to their game to develop at the NHL level. Like every year at the draft, we get this where I love this player,
Right.
you know, and then so many of them, these are 18, they're not shaving. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we don't know what they're going to be at 23. It's such a projection that's so hard. And the one thing we don't know too, when you know people value player X over player Y, sometimes we don't know what those interviews are like with that player. Is that kid a winner? You know, does he treat people around him well? Is he a good teammate? Like, we don't see any of that because they're not measurable statistics. You know, that's a huge part. Is he coachable? Is he going to be able to be developed? Is he going to be patient in that process, or is he going to be frustrated and want out like a Cutter Gauthier? You got to be careful of that. Like with today's modern athlete, like these guys know they have some control that players always probably had a little bit of control, but they're not afraid to flex it now. So there's a lot that goes into it. The notion that Rossi is small, he's 5'9", 190 pounds. To me, he doesn't play small. He's a thick kid. And like, is 5'9", I guess 5'9" is small. I don't know. It's bigger than me, but
Yeah, if they say he's 5'9", it's probably 5'8", right?
yeah. But I mean, look, Kimmo Timonen wasn't a big stature guy, but he was a brick shit house, right? You know, like there's guys that are small and play small, and there's guys that are big and play small, and there's small guys that can play big.
Mark Recchi, they called him Wrecking Ball for a reason.
Yeah, he was like a fire hydrant.
Well,
Yeah.
Danny's what? 5'6", 5'7". He used to lift those truck tires as part of his off-season training and stuff like that.
By the way, got his face by the stick.
Yeah.
Yeah,
He's
that was the other
lethal with
part.
his stick. Yeah.
It was a mean SOB.
Well,
Danny,
quick question then.
Go ahead. Yeah,
I mean, they do have they drafted two bigger centers this past season. Are we just writing off that neither one of them are going to pan out? I mean, you know, look at Noah Cates.
They're futures. That's the thing.
Yeah.
They're like 2-3 years away.
I didn't realize how big Rue Hanton was.
Yeah, he's at Harvard, so he's going to be a while. And basically lost his season. Berglund.
Jack Berglund.
Yeah.
Yeah. But here's some feedback from Scott Wheeler. I know, Dan, you like Scott. 3 guys are really making a good impression for interviews, if it means anything. Caleb Denoyer, Anton Frundell, and Brady Martin are especially positive in the feedback from the teams.
Look, I think that's I don't know how true that is or anything. I don't know how Scott sourced it, but I believe him because he's a good reporter. But I think that means something. Like if you go back to that 2003 draft when the Flyers took Richards and Carter, like Mike Richards, like skating, was his skating magical? Did he do anything? The only thing he did everywhere he was, like Kitchener and everywhere he went as a pro, even he just won. He was a winner. Like dude won at Kitchener, dude won an AHL Calder Cup, won multiple Stanley Cups. The guy just winning followed him around, and you got to go, well, why is that? Like that guy was just a winner. Like it wasn't like he was some rah-rah guy in the room, or he just knew how to be gutsy and win. Like I think you got to find those kind of guys in this situation in today's NHL. And like, you got to find guys that are going to be able to perform in the playoffs, because you can build this. We've seen it. God, if you went into this season, you looked at Colorado's roster, you're a Colorado fan, you're going, man, this is going to be a fun year. We're going for a ride all the way into June, right? Didn't happen. You look at Dallas after that magical series against the Avs. They just got spanked and ran out of gas. And look, they have one of the best goalies in the world. They got Rantanen, who was on a heater of all heaters. And still, it's so hard to win in today's game. Like, you got to, like, Dan, you got to be perfect, don't you? Like, I mean, you can't screw up. You can't have one bad contract because nobody's giving you a get out of jail free card.
Yeah, and we're doing a whole draft preview show in a week and a half. But I will say I like Denoyer a lot. I know some people have compared him to like a Nico Hischier. You know who when I watch him, I get some, like, I don't think he's as good as this player, but I get some Jonathan Toews kind of vibes. Just wins everywhere. I think their playing styles are a little bit similar. He's a guy, I don't think he's going to be there when the Flyers pick a number 6, though, because I think that one of those teams ahead of us is going to take a shot on him. And Frondell is actually a guy who I've sort of been moving away from a little bit. And it's funny because elite prospects guys, and we're having Russ on in a week and a half, they had Frondell like down at like 13. And I think that's probably a little bit low, but I got to tell you, like, all the video I watch of Frondell, I keep saying to myself, man, Victor Eklund looks better than him. They're on the same team. And maybe it's a case of a big guy needing to kind of grow into himself, but there's some reasons why I'm kind of not as high on Frondell as I have been. But Desnoyers, yeah, really impressed with him. And Brady Martin is a guy who some people, I think Corey Pronman keeps mocking the Flyers taking him in his mock drafts. I mean, he's just like the Flyers kind of player, right? I mean, he's like a Mike Richards. He would run through a wall. He's one of the best body checkers in the entire draft, if not the. But
oh boy, yeah, if they drafted, and then all the stuff about being a dump and chase team is going to get even more legs.
I want talent. Christ. I want guys going to help our power play. That's, to me, not. Frondell's got that shot. It almost kind of like reminds me a little bit of Gauthier. You watch him shoot, it's like, you missed out. Man, I love that shot. It just love to have that kind of size and shot combination.
I like the people that criticize the dump and chase and then don't realize that the team that dumps and chases the most in the entire NHL is the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
Like maybe the most in the last decade. I charted them in one game, the first 2 periods of one of the game when people were all going, oh, the dump and chase, freaking out because they think that because Taka played in 84 that he's going to coach like 1984. And I charted it, and there was 13 of 16 zone possessions. 13 of the 16 were via the dump and chase. I was like, Jesus, that's all. They come to the neutral zone with a 5-man unit buzzing. That's how you do it.
I don't care how you win as long as you win. I mean, the Flyers have not been a good team in terms of maintaining possession. So
they've been a horrible team coming to the neutral zone, which is part of the problem. They seem like a team with outside of not this past season, but the season prior, through 2/3 of it, they were great off the rush with Walker here. But something changed in that dynamic when he left. But they seem like a team in search of an identity in the way they exit their zone, flow through the neutral zone and into the offensive zone. They just didn't seem committed to any identity in particular, even though, they ran a pretty standard 2-1-2 forecheck, which is very aggressive, but it just didn't feel like they were all in on it. And if you're going to be aggressive, like you got to be all in on the forecheck. Like, F1's got to do his job. F2's got to do his job. F3's got to read, and D got to be willing to pinch down the wall, take a hit, those things. And they just didn't look like a team from the exit of their blue line through the neutral zone that was kind of preparing to do that, which is why I think they spent such a little time in the offensive zone.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the other rumors out there, and certainly not a solution in terms of zone exits from their D zone, is Elliot Friedman on Sportsnet 590 talking about the Flyers have been linked to Vegas defenseman Nic Hague.
I think a lot of teams are linked to him. He's a commodity. He scored on the Flyers this year too, if you recall. Coming down the wall, went behind the net, had the wraparound.
Oh, that was Nic Hague. Okay.
Yeah.
I know he punched Michkov when they had a little tete-a-tete in front of the net. So the thing is, they would apparently want a winger in return. I don't know about that.
A right winger?
I don't know what winger.
Well, it's got to be a right for the Flyers.
Well, he's 26. He's 26, 6'6", 240. He's an RFA. His last deal was roughly $2.3 million. A qualifying offer would be $2.7 million for an AAV. Issue with him, for me watching him, he had to be the slowest defenseman of all that I saw in the playoffs. I mean, he was, I don't know, he could have been, bothered by a groin injury or, that we don't know about, but he was really, really slow. And that would be my concern.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on who you pair him with and what you're asking him to do. There's big guys that aren't obviously burners that are good, like Colton Parayko. When you got that kind of size, you can make up a lot for foot speed with reach and being able to think the game properly. I do think they need to get a little bigger on that blue line. And obviously pending what they do with York in this contract, whether they sign him, extend him, what that looks like, what the term looks like, or they trade him, what you need a little bit more size back there. I think we've seen that you need some size on your blue line. You can't have all big guys, but you can't have all, like Sanheim's big, but does he play a big man's game? He doesn't. He plays more of a finesse game, right? Skating. Sometimes you have to have some less mobile guys be a little meaner back there. Now, is Hague mean? I don't know. I don't know enough about him to go there.
Yeah, Chef?
So I agree with you. I do need to get bigger. Maybe they just signed Helge Grund, so maybe they're going to give him a solid look. But what does that do? I mean, we mentioned York based on his size. What's that do to Andre? Emil Andre is not that big either. It looked like he got overwhelmed a couple times by a couple of larger players. Where does that put his future then?
Well, to me, if you're going to move forward, when it's all said and done, you're either moving forward with York or Andre. I don't think you can move forward with both. You can, but you'll be small because you're going to have to partner in your top four somebody with Jamie Drysdale, who's not a big body, and I really like Drysdale's last third of the season in particular, and Sanheim, who doesn't play a heavy game. So who are you going to pair him with? You need that one guy back there. Like, who's the right guy to play on the right side with Hague? Like, who would be the right player to have there with him, as a partner? That's what you got to figure out too.
Yeah.
Like, this puzzle is really complicated from an on-ice roster and culture standpoint to the fiscal puzzle. Like, but some teams like I heard Friedge talking about the other day, or no, somebody on the Kipper and Bourne show saying the most likely destination that makes sense for Mitch Marner is Dallas. I went, didn't they just extend Rantanen at $12 million? And they did. And then they mentioned Vegas, who signs everybody. And they figure it out somehow, these cap gymnastics. It's crazy. So with this rising cap, maybe you can do more, than we previously thought.
Yeah, but the other thing you mentioned, Dallas, and Dan, if you want to mention this about Jason Robertson's name was thrown out there because of Rantanen's contract and all the gymnastics you're referring to, that maybe they might move on from Jason Robertson, who's 25. He'll be 26 in July, and he might be a casualty and could be available, and especially if they have plans to get Marner. Who knows, right?
I mean, again, I look at adding a guy who's probably going to need $9-10 million as a winger. I just kind of hesitate with adding something like that because it's just not our greatest position of need. I mean, we have a lot of wingers. I would, again, want to kind of wait and see what happens in the draft, even though, yes, whoever we get will be a few years away from making an impact. But it's kind of like I sigh because every single guy that ever becomes available, Flyers fans are like, we need to go out and get this guy, and blah 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 blah. They say same thing about Marner. Now Jason Robertson. These are all nice players, but
it was Pettersson too, right?
Marco Rossi,
yeah.
Pettersson,
Yep.
right? But here's the other point, and I do think that they will do something this offseason. I don't think it's going to be like a big splash, but they'll bring in some guys. I think we need to keep in mind and remember that we've got a new head coach coming in, and he's going to want to evaluate some of these players also. He's going to want to evaluate Cam York. Hopefully he won't get into altercations with Cam York like John Tortorella did. And he's going to want to evaluate Emil Andre. He's going to want to evaluate all these players. I mean, when I was putting together my salary cap spreadsheet with the Flyers, I was looking at it, and I had kept, Foerster, Cates, and Brink together. And those guys had great chemistry, right? But that doesn't mean that Rick Tocchet's going to come in and want to keep these three guys together. I mean, we do have a new head coach coming in. So I think we've got to keep that in mind when we're thinking about who's going to come in. Like, again, we talked about Elias Pettersson. I'm pretty sure that, the Rick Tocchet's tied in with Keith Jones. Like, I'm guessing that the Flyers had some inside scoops about Elias Pettersson, right? Maybe that's part of the reason they didn't go after him. So, I think, again, we just kind of have to trust in what they're doing. I was at the town hall, and I keep coming back to this, but at the town hall, Danny and Jonesy basically acknowledged that they need to get a little bit bigger, right? I don't know how giving a 5'9" center a 5-year contract would constitute that. Like, I think that they are cognizant of the fact that they need to get bigger. So I don't think they're going to spend a lot of money to bring in a smaller player. When push comes to shove, I don't think that's going to happen.
See, the thing about it too is everything, like, kind of since they took over, they kind of said what they were going to do, and they've actually kind of followed it.
Yeah,
it's really bizarre. Like, we're not used to that. We get Clarkie, oh, everything's great, I full trust in my head coach. Next day, the dude was gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You never got any kind. You couldn't read any tea leaves. These guys, they operate very clandestinely, Danny and Jonesy. But kind of what they said all along, they've kind of stuck to. Like, the players are going to determine the arc, all these things. I mean, since Danny took over, of the 36 players, I think it was, that played for the Flyers that season when Chuck Fletcher was fired. Since then, Danny has moved on from 20 of them, whether it was contract was up, he traded them, didn't extend them, whatever it might be. Turned over 19, 20 players. I say 19 because Hart was one of them. So I kind of don't count that because that's different. But 19 of 36 players is a lot. It hasn't felt like there's been a lot of change here.
There has.
But there's been a lot of change here. I mean, if you think about it, it's just, I guess when you're losing, it just doesn't feel like enough change is happening fast enough to satiate your appetite. And I think that's part of the, like Dan alluded to it. I think he's dead on. Like, everybody wants the Flyers to be relevant again. So when they see the shiny toy out there of an Elias Pettersson, or when JT Miller's name was out there, or you see Jason Robertson now, or you see Mitch Marner, or you see other guys that are well thought of around the league, we go, we got to get them because we don't have enough. We got to get them. Well, they have to have a plan that's got a flow chart to it and the progress of this thing. And, you cannot get emotional and shoot from the hip as a general manager right now, because if you do and it's not right, the consequence is too great. I'd love to have Jason Robertson on my left wing, but again, now I'm allocating a $10 million more dollars, maybe more, to my left wing for a point per game player when I still haven't solved my center problem. The center is like, you used to talk about this on the radio all the time when I was doing sports talk. Like, if you don't have your franchise quarterback, you're looking. There's two teams in the NFL: ones that have a franchise quarterback and ones that are looking for it. And until you find it, you're going nowhere. I think the center position is the same way.
Yeah,
I believe in that. I used to think it was goaltending. I think that a little bit less now, because we see goalies go through the playoffs all the time that aren't high price guys. Now we see Bob again, but I mean, like, look at Stuart Skinner. Like, dude's been unbelievable. Last time the Flyers got to a final in 2010 in the conference final, Michael Leighton had 3 shutouts in a 5-game series. In the 5 games played, like, you just don't know. So I like Robertson a lot, but again, I don't know that I want to allocate that to the wing. And, the Marner thing, I don't know if you guys want to talk about that. If they were to acquire him, I don't think he's coming here, first of all. If they were to acquire him, I'm not for it. My gut tells me it's not the right thing to do. And I don't just move him to center because he played center in junior.
Yeah.
Like that seems like awfully thin reasoning to me. But if they did acquire him, I would immediately be excited because they would be better. You know what I mean? You have a 100-point player that can kill penalties and is really, he's a great player. I don't think it's the right thing to do for the Flyers this time. I know it seems counterintuitive, but if they did it, I'd be really excited to go. It would make going to the rink, 41 times
easier.
a year a little bit more fun.
Yeah. It's Robertson, to me, he fills a need, and he's got a 40 goal. He's at 40 twice. He's 6'3", 200. Yeah. It's
a great pick by Jim Nill, by the way.
Oh, boy, I tell you. And for years, we would hear about Jim Nill in the background in Detroit. And there's this guy, James Santaforte. I used to see him on Hockey Buzz. Now he's probably on Hockey Hot Stove now. He was always good with the prospects. He said, when we were looking for general managers, he said, get Jim Nill. He's one of the best executives in the league for sure.
Yeah. And so's Bill Zito, who came from
No, we had a chance.
We had a chance too. Yep.
Yeah.
That's who I wanted.
Well, that guy's got like stones. He uses every different method there is to build a team. I think you have to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be careful. Like, I'm so for the Flyers getting in this offer sheet game, but I'm also scared to death of it because if you go high level and you lose your first round pick next year, what if the goalie they bring in to kind of calm that down and give you average goaltending at least gets hurt, and you have the goaltending you had this past year, and now you're a lottery team again, and Gavin McKenna's there, and you got the 7th best odds, and you use that for an RFA for Gabe Velarde.
McKenna's a winger, though.
Yeah, but you're not going to have McKenna because you used the first round pick in an RFA offer sheet.
No, I'm just saying he's a winger anyway, right?
Yeah. But like, I don't know, man. It's. I'm glad I don't have to make these decisions, although I'd love to make them.
Well, what about the rumor of San Jose willing to trade their 2nd round pick?
Yeah, for your firstborn, secondborn, and thirdborn.
Yeah, doesn't make sense.
I think
it's entertaining that.
They always say it. Oh yeah, we're open for business, but the price is always so insane because you want to be the GM, like Mike Greer, young GM, right? Does he want to be the guy that passed up on Misa as Misa goes on, becomes this insane talent because he traded back 3 spots or 4 spots and ends up drafting Frundell, who flops and doesn't even make it to the league? That's a stain on his shirt you can't get out.
Yep.
Like, it defines his career. Like, I think when you're in the top 5, you don't ever move out. You can try and move up, but you don't ever move out. I wouldn't if I was a GM, especially a young GM. I'm not going to screw up my career on one play like that.
Yeah. Dan, you were going to...
All right, I've got a question that's a different vein that I'm interested in Jason's perspective on. And it's kind of a controversial thing. But I keep finding myself wondering as I read the articles about the Hockey Canada trial, like if Carter Hart gets completely exonerated, do you think that that's a path that the Flyers might investigate in bringing him back?
I don't. I mean, I think they would investigate it, but I don't think. I think he's ready to move on. I think he was ready to move on in training camp before he was even pulled in the middle of the season. I don't think that. I know it. So I talked to him about it.
From the Flyers.
Yeah. I mean, he was. Look, goalies get paid on raw numbers, right? And like us as like observers, fans, whatever you want to call it, like we're in this thing for the tenure of our life. Their pro career is this little protracted 6 to maybe 12-year window to earn as much as they can. And when you're on a team that's been in a pretty long rebuild and you haven't had a good system in front of you and good D-zone environment, and you see all these other goalies like Ottinger getting paid huge bucks that, from a pedigree standpoint, you're along right there with them. You're starting to go, I'm getting a little tired of losing here. I got to get on a team that's going to win. I got to make my money now because I got to set myself up because my career is not the entirety of my life to do it. I don't have 30 more years to make my money. I have my window leading up to the end of my RFA arbitration eligibility into unrestricted free agency. And I have to put a resume out there to be able to do that. And I think and the losing, I think, really wore on him quite a bit. And the way kind of would get really ugly at the end of the years really was tough on him. So I don't think he'd be interested in coming back. I don't know about the team's interest. I haven't talked to anybody about it, but I just think that's a book in the chapter that's already written, and there will not be any kind of, another chapter for him here.
Got it.
Plus, I think he ends up in a place because no matter what, like you guys know this, no matter what the result of the trial is, he's guilty in a lot of public eyes, no matter what. Like even those Duke lacrosse players years ago are still guilty in some people's eyes publicly, even though that woman admitted that she made it all up. And I don't know if this EM and this, I don't know anything about that, but there is going to be a backlash. But in some places that backlash is considerably less.
And that was the other part of my question, right? It's 2 parts, right? One is, would he want to come back to the team? And the other is, if the team willing to take on the potential PR hit from the fans of that kind of stigma, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, they've taken on some guys that had questionable PR hits before. I mean, go back to Billy Tibbetts way back when. Well, but there's been other guys. I mean, Provorov was became a bit of a.
This
PR
is
problem.
different. I think this is a little bit different.
Yeah, this is criminal behavior.
Yeah.
That's being.
This is Michael Vick territory here. Well, even worse.
Yeah, I mean, but look, the subjective morality of fandom is real.
Yes.
If he can come in and help you win, you can be outraged until you need saves, right? Like that's just the fact of the matter. That's not being controversial, but I've been in this city and done media for over 30 years. I've seen a lot of selective morality in this city. Can he help us win? That's really what it comes down to for most.
Let me just say this. I have from a source who has been very reliable in the past that at the very least the Flyers have been in contact with him. To what degree? I mean, they could have told him to F off. I don't know. But they have been
I could see a world with Jonesy's keeping that door open and keeping him in the loop on the plan and all of that. Like, I think Jonesy is great at that kind of stuff and would do everything he could to make it an option. Because I think he's a really good goalie. I like him as a player a lot. And I got pretty close with him when he was here, and I liked him as a person too. I don't know anything about what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't spoken to him since he left. But if he can help you win, he is exonerated, and it's something. It all depends on kind of how it's exonerated too. Is just being from the judge not guilty enough, or is it got to be? I don't know. I followed the case a little bit, and there's some things in there that I go, it's a little, there's some things here that don't wash. So, but I'm not being read the facts of the case every day either and asked to weigh on it. So, but Jonesy's a really smart hockey guy, and he knows that Carter's a good goalie. And if he can be an option for you and help you solve a problem and you're satisfied with how the result of this plays out, then look, you have a discussion you have to have, and you got to bring Brian Roberts into that discussion too, because he's the owner of the team.
Yeah, no doubt. Putting that aside, are you interested in either Thatcher Demko or John Gibson?
I'm interested in Demko a lot more than Gibson. I did a little bit of homework here on that in the last week or so on Demko in particular, because I have a good friend who covers the Vancouver Canucks for NHL.com. You guys know him, Kevin Woodley. He's also the goalie guy that I have on pod quite a bit, and he and I are always texting back and forth. And I asked him, he said he's pretty sure they figured out what Demko's injury situation was. It was a little bit of one of those weird ones, like kind of like Ray Emery's a little bit, where they couldn't kind of put their finger on exactly what was wrong and timeline.
Some muscle in his knee or something.
Yeah, something. It was. They said they feel like they have a handle on that. But what he told me, he goes, not nothing over 50 games. He's got 1 year left at, I think, 5.1, which I love. But they're not going to give him away either, just because they signed Lankin into a contract extension.
Right.
They think, and this is kind of what Woody intimated to me, is he may have more value at the deadline than he does in the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
If he can come back, play, prove healthy on an expiring deal, and you feel good about Lankinen, if you're Vancouver and you're in the mix, or if you're Vancouver and you're out of the mix, then you can move a guy like Demko and really get a heck of a return, I would think. Because there's always a couple of teams that think they can really go make that run for the cup if they have the goaltending. And so he may be worth more then. But on the Flyers, I can't wait till the deadline. I can't go into the year with what I had this year. Like, that just undoes you as a team. Bad goaltending, non-reliable goaltending just undoes a hockey team so quickly. So, as we see this, I just see a report that the Flyers are interested in trading for. Oh, this is Nic Hague. I thought it said for Gibson, but no. Gibson, on the other hand, though, 2 years left, over 6.5. He's a guy that's also injury prone as well. So if you get a guy in here to be a tandem goaltender with Sam Ersson and he gets hurt and you're back to Ersson and Fedotov or Kolosov, who knows where that's going to go, then now I might be in the Gavin McKenna sweepstakes again.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how many games he played last year.
Who?
Gibson.
While you're looking,
played about 35, right around there, I believe so.
I do. It is. I mean, whenever I look at the Flyers roster as it's currently constructed, I do find myself wondering, like, I don't know how good this team is going to be next year. I mean, And you see which teams won the lottery this year, the Islanders and Utah, who were both like right around, they were close to being a playoff team.
They were nipping on it.
Yep. Nipping on it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure that I don't think this is a playoff team. It's currently constructed.
Well, no way, not even close.
Right, not even close.
Oh, my YouTube feed.
So it's like, we talk about potentially throwing an offer sheet out there for someone that would cost us our first round pick next year, right? So
depending on the level you go to.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. The kind of guy that probably they're going to go, that we would want them to go after.
Matthew Nyes.
Yeah, Matthew Nyes. It's those kind of guys. Gabe Vilardi, like they're going to cost us at least a first round pick, right, to try and go after. And I can't imagine that they're going to want to give up that first round pick next year, but
especially because with the guy McKenna sitting there and two teams just moved up like
exactly
way up in the draft lottery. I mean, can you imagine like next year, like they use that in an offer sheet and then their season unwinds, they end up finishing with the 8th worst record or 9th worst record, and then their lottery ball hits and they don't have the pick.
Be a disaster.
I mean, I'd be on the wall with Bridge. I'm like the most rational and calm, non-emotional guy, and when it comes to this team,
we're getting McDavid next summer. It's fine. It's going to be fun.
Yeah. Gibson played 29 games last year.
Right. Yeah.
I think he's still a good goalie, but again, I say it all the time. The best ability in sports is availability. I don't care how good you are. If you can't play for me, it doesn't matter. So you got to be available. And Gibson Demko kind of scared me there.
Yeah.
Of our bullet points are Lappy and leaving. Really great guy. I know he was on Flyers Daily a lot with you. My question is he a casualty because of the lack of system of back and forth between Lehigh Valley and the Flyers? Because it seemed like Torts' freewheeling, like there wasn't really like, hey, train the guys to play this style so when they come up, they know what they're doing. Because it did seem like a lot of times some of these players were lost for the first couple of games when they did come up, and then it kind of hurt their chances of getting a good look.
Yeah, I think that's look. Every one of these players has played a 1-2-2, 2-1-2, a 1-2-2, the 2-1-2 in the neutral zone, or 1-3-1, whatever, boxing one on the D zone. They all know how to do it. The systems get a little bit overblown, I think, in hockey sometimes. Except when you execute them to the T, because you see the result. Like you could, like there are times like when we're doing games, and like I'll take screenshots on my computer of the game, like and send them to Brian Smith, be like, pretty obvious what they're doing here with 2-1-2, and you see how it results, or even the other team when they do it, and where they like the CSI figure out why the goal happened, not just the finish. Yeah. Sometimes that happens inside your own blue line, why you score a goal. So I think that gets overblown a little bit. The fact that the systems weren't exact from AHL to here. I think they just wanted to change the voice there in Lehigh with Lappy.
Okay.
You have 1 year left on his deal. It was going to need to be that or extend him. I don't think you ever put coaches even at the AHL level in that position of riding out the last year of your deal, because cut your legs off as a coach, because your hammer is playing time, and if you don't have that tenure on your deal, then I think it really cuts a coach's legs off. So who is it going to be? I don't know. That's a good question. Who the next head coach is going to be. And I think maybe we'll hear about all of that when we hear about the assistants too. Like we'll get one dump on that on one day. Like here's the new AHL coaching staff. Here's the rest of Rick Tockett's coaching staff. Flyers already made some moves from, assistant coaches and development coaches. Angelo Ricci was let go. And, but is that everybody that's going to be let go, or could there be more? I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing a guy like Ian Clark come here, who worked with Talk in Vancouver, to kind of oversee goaltending in total, like oversee Dillabaugh and Brady Anderson, and kind of be the Roberto Luongo, how he is for Florida, to kind of oversee that whole thing from here. He's still under contract with the Canucks. I'd like to see a guy like him, though. I think he's really sharp.
Now, is that interesting that, given the Flyers carousel of goalies and the inconsistency, that Is there something that I guess Dylan Ball has a little more credibility? Is that why he wasn't? I was surprised that he wasn't let go since they were clean. Seemed like they were cleaning house.
I mean, how much can you blame him for the development of Ivan Fedorov when it was 28 and a half when he got here? You know what I mean?
True.
And he came from the KHL, and Kolosov, who didn't really spend any time in the American League, like didn't get here for development camp. Like he really didn't get his hands on him. You can't do that kind of stuff in practices, and you can't have like one of the things I didn't like this year was the 3 goalie system.
Yes,
it's so flawed on so many levels. It doesn't do anybody any good, and it was one of the things that I didn't like the way that kind of played out. So how do I blame him for? Is he supposed to fix a 29-year-old Fedorov who doesn't move well? I mean, developmental years are so far in Fedorov's rearview mirror that I don't think he can change at that point. And at the time he missed and everything, the guys you really got to kind of hone in on are going to be Bjarnason this year and how he comes through with the Phantoms and through development camp. He's probably here now. Like they have to kick the kid out of the building. He's like the nicest kid in the world. He's like just loves being immersing himself in the game. And then obviously Zavragin, who you don't have a lot of influence on because he's in Russia now, but he looks like a freak show. Like his numbers are ridiculous. But he hasn't gotten his hands on them yet. So, but that's where I like to see a guy like Dilly deal with the guys that are here. Brady Anderson deal with the guys that are there in the AHL and the ECHL, and kind of a guy like Ian Clark overseeing all of it. It's kind of the way I envision it.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Interesting.
The position is just too consequential not to resource it.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a big year. You got Barkey and Bonk coming as well. So I could and Bump a lot of B's.
People are like crapping on Barkey like he's
we don't mind the
no
bees.
Chance. Like, come on, man. Like this kid is just he's one of those guys. He might just be a winner. You know what I mean?
Barkey. Got that dog in him.
He does. Like, and is he small-ish? You know what I mean? Is he? I think we got this notion that like everybody's got to be like Lindros and Leclerc. In today's game, you don't.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have some of everything. You got to have some size, but something about Barkey is just intrigues me. Like watching him, like he just looks like a winner. He just won a Memorial Cup too, so played for won a lot, but he just looks like, and he's got like an infectious personality to him. There's a lot of. I think he's a fun player.
Now is he one of the guys that you talk about that has that thing about him where he wins wherever he goes? Is he that kind of infectious player? That kind of
talk to me in a decade. I'll let you know.
Yeah. He's got the potential. At least he's got the potential. You can see it. You see a little already.
I mean, his numbers are like Danny. His numbers are pretty eye popping, aren't they? Like they're pretty ridiculous.
Yeah, he's the captain of the team that just won the championship across all 3 Canadian junior leagues.
And went to it last year, the championship, and lost.
Yeah,
Saginaw.
Right. I mean,
last year.
to be the captain of a team like that, he's got to have crazy leadership qualities. He's got a great motor on the ice. Again, like we talked about, he's a smaller guy, so you probably want to limit the number of guys you have like that on the team. Like you don't want probably a Barkey, Rossi, Bobby Brink line, right? But I think he is the kind of guy that I have confidence in him that he's going to make an impact because of his pedigree, the way that he plays. He's going to physically mature a little bit. He's going to Chef B's going to give him some growth pills, and it's like
no, they could duck under checks. I mean,
and the fact that the Hunter family is comfortable putting a C on his jersey tells me that says a lot.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, some guys there are a group of guys, kind of like a Marty St. Louis and a Danny Briere, that it doesn't matter how small they were always going to be very, very good NHL players. I don't know if Barkey's going to become like one of those guys. Probably doesn't have the offensive upside, but you get the same sense that he's going to make it somehow. At least that's the sense I get.
Yeah, I mean, I got Theo Fleury, Dino Cicerelli. There's the smaller guys. I mean, there's that select group of players that can do it. So, if that's my last thing for Jason, but before we get out of here, we have to get our Stanley Cup final predictions. It all begins tonight after all that time off. Chef, why don't you start?
Man, I had Dallas and the Cats in the final, but I had Dallas winning, so I guess I'll go to the alternate choice that I had in the final. So I'm going to say the Cats in 7. I think it's going to be a great series again. I can't wait.
All right, Dan.
Yeah, I hope it's going to be a fantastic series. Florida's like the best team, TEAM, that I've seen in a while. The way that they play. I mean, what they did to Toronto in those two pivotal in Game 5 and Game 7, and then what they did to Carolina all series. But I just don't think that Connor McDavid is going to lose this series. I don't think it's going to happen. I think him and Draisaitl are somehow going to pull this team to victory. I think Edmonton's going to win in 7.
I have the same thing. I have Edmonton too. Obviously, McDavid and Draisaitl have to be a huge part of it. But the thing that's been so impressive about Edmonton is that the other guys have picked up that it's not just about those two anymore.
Yeah.
And they defend well, and they've gotten good goaltending. You know, maybe you got Skinner or Bobrovsky, but the way Skinner's been playing, I can't deny it. I think it's going to be a sensational series of, you know, two immovable objects colliding into each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's great for the NHL to get McDavid in the final again, and it'd be great for him to win it because you want your best players to win the best trophies and to be champions, and he is the best player. So I'm going to take Edmonton in 7, and I think McDavid's going to win be the MVP of the playoffs because what did he put up last year? 14 points or something in the 7 games. Last year was weird because they went down 0-3 and then back.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a little bit more back and forth, but he's going to have like 15 points again. He's just going to not be denied. He is just so insane. It's like a video game. But yeah, I'll take Edmonton in this one to win the cup and be the first Canadian team since 93.
93, the Canadians.
The Habitant one with Patrick Waugh.
With Rico and Leclerc.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we get to Isaiah's pick, I have a question for Jason about McDavid, because I hear a bunch of people saying stuff like, and again, it's probably a pipe dream that the Flyers could get him, right? But I hear people talking about, oh, we want Edmonton to lose, so he'll be more likely to leave. In my mind, almost think that if he wins a cup this year there,
more likely to leave.
That he might be more likely to leave because he won't feel like there's unfinished business in Edmonton. He can have his glory.
He delivered what he was supposed to.
Right, exactly. He can have his glory year in Edmonton where they celebrate everything next year, and then he decides he wants to go and build a cup winner with another team.
And
that's just
build
one
the
of my
game.
thoughts.
When Gretzky got moved from Edmonton to LA, what was it to do? It was to build the game in non-traditional market like California, and it worked. I mean, look at like how good California those teams have. I mean, the Sharks that went to a cup final were always a really good team for a long time. Obviously, the Kings have the 2 cups in 2012 and
12 and 14.
Yeah, and then you have Anaheim, who won a cup in 2007.
J.S. Giguère.
Yeah, were some really good teams there, and I mean, hockey's just boomed there. Now you see Florida's got all these cups in a non-traditional market, and look, nothing against Edmonton, but having the best player in your game, the most dynamic talent to put skates on ever, in my opinion, to have him playing in what I would equate to as Siberia, we got to watch it at 10 o'clock or 10:30 at night. It's not going to grow the game. Like, he's got to be in a major market on an East Coast. Like, he just has to. Like, the numbers are suffered this year in the playoffs. Why? Boston's not in the playoffs. 3 New York teams are not in the playoffs. Yeah, the Devils are, but they're the least intriguing of any of those teams. No Pittsburgh, no Chicago, no Detroit. Like, you can't wonder why the ratings are down when you see all these markets that are not in the playoffs. So, I mean, I love to go into the East Coast, and I love they're building a new building.
Ooh.
And you know that when they build a building, they got to put a face on it. So,
if there was no cap and Snyder was still alive, we'd have McDavid.
Yeah.
I fully believe that.
I'm going with Florida in 7. I think the Zach Hyman injury is going to hurt them a little bit. And I like Bob over Skinner when it comes down to it for a game 7. But I could definitely, everybody's anybody picking Edmonton has a valid point. Like McDavid and Draisaitl will not be denied. I mean, I
just
get
enjoy it. Enjoy the great hockey and hope that
Exactly.
Flyers can get there soon.
Yeah. So, all right. Yeah, we'll wrap it there. Jay, continued strength, and we're all behind you with your with what you're dealing with here as you go through the second phase. First phase came out fairly good, right? So
yeah, results were good. It was the hardest 4 months of my existence, no matter what happens going here forward. There's no question about it. The 4 months of chemo were some kind of hellscape that I don't think they've come up with the words to describe yet, like how it was. But it beat me up good. It's certainly changed me a ton. It's messed me up in some ways mentally. But we're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep pushing forward. I started radiation this past week, had my first couple of treatments. The side effects for that won't come for a couple of weeks. But when they do, I'll deal with them. And in the meantime, anybody, if you're over 45 years of age, just go get a colonoscopy. I was scared too, like an idiot. And had I done it when I was younger, my treatment might have been a lot less grueling. But that's where I am right now. And I just want people to go get that colonoscopy. I just got to know from a guy the other day. Yeah, I pooped in the box and everything came back good. He said, I did it because, you told your story and you wanted to avoid it. So that's awesome.
That's awesome.
I wouldn't even do that. Like I was scared to do that because I was scared of the result. So, go out there and get the colonoscopies. It's a nothing burger of a procedure.
Yep. Absolutely.
Well, you've got more than the three of us. I know you've got an entire Flyers fandom behind you. So
yeah, they've been
a lot of love coming your way, brother.
It's Absolutely. Weird, Danny, because, we all spend our time on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And the one thing this has done is kind of renewed my faith in humanity because we just so much negativity out there. It's polarization and extremes with everything. The support that this fan base has given me has been just humbling. Yeah. It's crazy. It's unbelievable.
Well, excellent. Very happy for you, buddy. And don't f it up. I do believe it's a terminology, right?
I've gotten a few of those notes. Yeah.
I know you said it on one of the podcasts that somebody had said it to you. And I say it all the time. And
it's torts.
Yeah, it was torts. Yep.
Right.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. He's been great for me even since he's been let go. I got a note from Edzo the other day, and just tell me to strap in and keep pushing. People all over the game, even locally, and that's just been unbelievable. This sport knows how to rally around people, and I will tell you that there are days where I'm beat up bad mentally, and you don't want to push forward, but the support I've gotten from people has helped me do that. So. I went public to help people, but I knew selfishly it was going to help me too. Like, make no mistake about it, and it has.
That's the best we can hope for. Or as the old saying goes, if you're going through hell, keep on going.
Yep, keep moving.
So, all right, we're going to wrap it there. You can follow us on a variety of different podcast platforms: Apple, Spotify, iHeart, TuneIn, Amazon Audible. We're on Facebook and YouTube. Just plug in their O&B Puckcast. You can check us out on socials at O&B Puck, at O&B Puck on X, Blue Sky, at O&B Puckcast, on Getter. And if you could rate and subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. So that's all we have for you tonight. We're going to have a draft preview show coming up on the 16th with Russ Cohen and Shane Malloy. And then we have a post-draft show with a very special guest. We're looking forward to that. So until next time, everybody, thanks for joining us tonight, and take care. Hey everybody, it's Isaiah, and I'm here with Chef B, who's going to tell us about one of our sponsors here. Chef?
Yeah, O&B Puckcast is now brought to you by Summit Public Adjusters. The winter months can be especially hard on our homes, from roof damage and peeling siding to frozen pipes and toilet overflows. Call Summit Public Adjusters before you call your insurance company.
Dealing with your insurance company can be stressful and confusing. Let Summit Public Adjusters take the stress out of the claim process by having our guys work for you. Get the most for your money and your repairs. The next time the big snow or the rain leaves you with some home damage, contact us for a free consultation. Summit Public Adjusters are licensed in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Learn more at summitpublicadjusters.com or call 215-752-0560. Just tell them that the chef sent you.
Yeah, what was that number again, Chef?
215-752-0560.
That's terrific. All right, we're going to carry on with the rest of our show.